Give me 10 seconds. 10 seconds to tell you something that might change how you rid your own life. Not every wound is a punishment. Some scars are symbols, quiet signatures. The psyche leaves to guide us back to our center. Jung would say the unconscious speaks, but it doesn't use sentences. It speaks in images. Tonight, let's learn how to listen to that language. Have you ever sat in a crowded room and still felt strangely unseen, like you were present, but not quite here? That feeling isn't random. It's the soul tapping the glass, asking you to look beneath the roles you perform. Anxiety that always visits before you succeed, an attraction to the same kind of partner who hurts you, the dream that repeats every few months. These are not accidents. They're symbols trying to be understood. What keeps knocking on your door lately? Let me be clear from the start. Healing isn't about erasing pain. It's about changing our relationship to it, letting pain be a message rather than a master. Shadow work isn't self-attack, it's self-honesty with compassion. We learn to sit close to the signal without being swallowed by it. Think of boundaries as the house frame that lets the inner weather pass through without tearing the roof off. Which emotion in you deserves a boundary and a listening ear at the same time? Imagine walking into a private gallery that belongs to your life. On the walls, a childhood memory that still stings, a recurring number. The way your chest tightens when you say yes but mean no. Each piece is a symbol. You don't have to like every picture to learn from it. You only have to ask, what is this trying to show me now? Which piece in your gallery do you avoid, and what might happen if you stood before it for one honest minute? So why do we rarely hear the psyche's language? Because most of us try to control life like a machine instead of meeting it like a mystery. We press harder on old levers and wonder why nothing changes. Jung's invitation is radical move from control to collaboration with something wiser in you. Less fixing, more listening. Where could you replace pressure with presence this week? What does that something wiser want? Wholeness, Jung called it the self, the deeper organizing center that wants to include, not exclude, what you've disowned. Individuation isn't becoming perfect. It's becoming whole. It's the felt click when your outer life finally aligns with your inner truth. Often it begins when you leave a room that has no air left for you and discover the door was never locked. What room in your life has quietly stopped breathing? How do I tell guidance from fantasy? Guidance repeats with a living, steady tone. It survives your moods. It asks for responsibility. Fantasy flatters, rushes, and collapses under reality testing. Try this. Let an image or phrase return 3 times in different contexts: a dream, a conversation, a body signal. Then ask, if this were wise, what small real action would it ask of me within 24 hours? What has visited you 3 times lately? If your heart is getting quieter as you listen, that's the sign we're close. The soul doesn't shout, it hums. Write down 1 dream for 7 mornings or track 1 body cue, tight throat, heavy stomach for 1 week. Speak kindly to your shadow as if it were a scared child at the door. Wholeness isn't the prize at the end, it's the condition for beginning. What practice could you keep for 7 days without self-judgment? Before we step into Jung's map, take one agreement with you. I will not rush my depths and I will not abandon them. We'll explore archetypes, the anima, animus, and the shadow. Not as theories, but as living symbols you can test in your day. If this resonates, tell me in the comments which image from your gallery is calling for your attention right now. And if you want more guided work like this, subscribe. New chapters are coming. The door is already trembling. All that's left is to turn the handle. Treat this chapter like a letter you write to yourself after a long night. When life becomes one-dimensional, packed schedules, polite smiles of self that's always fine, the unconscious moves to rebalance you. Jung called this compensation. Whenever consciousness leans too far to one side, the unconscious generates a counterforce to restore equilibrium. If you over-control, it leaks emotion. If you repress needs, it projects desire onto others. If you live all day in your head, night will call you back into the body through dreams, heart rhythm, a nameless restlessness. This isn't mystical fate, it's inner ecology. The psyche wants wholeness, and compensation is how it brings you back to center. So instead of asking, why did I mess up? Try, where have I become one-sided enough that my unconscious has to speak this loudly? You might sense another figure here, anima/animus, the inner feminine masculine. If Marin is ruled by a critical animus, not enough. Hurry-up compensation might send a nourishing image, the grandmother warm bread. In someone else, if a dreamy, ungrounded anima floats them off the earth, compensation may send framing symbols, stone steps, tools. The task isn't to banish these figures, but to befriend them. Let the animus build instead of only critique. Let the anima warm instead of only drift. All of this feels intimate, but it thrives in community. The personal unconscious is woven into the collective unconscious. Each of us is a strand in a larger chorus. If you recognize yourself in Marine, high and bright for too long, step into our circle, a place where we listen without fixing, where your story isn't corrected to be right, where your dream is welcomed like a guest and asked, "What message did you bring last night?" Drop a line in the comments. What is my life compensating for right now? Share a brief dream image if you like. We don't analyze each other. We face the same direction, learn the language of symbol, and cheer each other on toward one small act tomorrow. Before the next episode, try a 90-second practice tonight. As you lie down, recall one recent image that lightly tapped your chest, a piece of music evening, light through a window, warm water on skin, or a lingering dream. Ask quietly if this is the unconscious compensating for today's one-sidedness. What is it adding? Don't force a perfect answer. Choose one gesture for tomorrow aligned with that image. If it's water, sip, slowly shower 3 minutes longer. If it's a key, open the conversation you've delayed. If it's bread, sit down and eat without multitasking. These small moves say to the self, I'm listening. When the self is heard, compensation can relax. Life begins to balance. In the next part, we'll move from dreams and compensation to daytime signals. How to tell meaningful synchronicity from attention bias. How to journal without falling into superstition, yet still honor the mystery of pattern. And how one small sign can lead to a new choice without theatrics. If this chapter warmed you even a little, like the old woman placing a loaf in Marin's hands, stay with us. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and share your compensation story below. Your story might be the tiny golden key someone else is about to find in their own flooded hallway tonight. Imagine a 35-year-old American woman, we'll call her Marin. By day, she's the team's star, replies in 10 minutes meetings, stacked back to back. Always I've got it. The persona shines reliable, hyper-productive. But inside Marin's ego runs on an old belief, I'm worthy only when I'm useful, forged in years, where love was tied to achievement. She hasn't listened to her body in a long time, hasn't allowed sadness, hasn't dared to breathe slowly. Consciousness is skewed toward control and service. The unconscious begins to compensate. First, the light signals, breaking promises to herself, trouble focusing, eyes stinging for no obvious reason. Then one night a dream arrives. Marin's dream. She stands in a glass office tower so tall it touches the clouds. Everything gleams reflective, flawless. She steps into an elevator to go higher, but instead it floats downward like a leaf until the doors open into a flooded basement. A dark hallway, water cold at her ankles. A black fish glides past. A jangling key ring drops at her feet. She picks it up. There's a tiny golden key. Footsteps approach. An old woman with flour on her hands offers her a warm loaf and says, "Eat, get warm first." Marin startles awake, a hand on her belly, as if still holding the loaf's heat. Read the dream symbolically in Jung's spirit. Think symbols of transformation. Not fortune-telling, but a letter from the unconscious written in images with personal and collective layers. Personally, the glass tower looks like the work world, bright, perfect on display, and like the persona itself, glossy and fragile. The elevator's descent is the move from head to depths, a summons down to the waterline. Water is the classic image of the unconscious. The fish are its living contents, feelings, desires, memories left behind. The key ring implies a door waiting to be opened. The tiny golden key, sunmetal, suggests the potential to bring what's hidden into consciousness. The flower-handed old woman with bread is the mother archetype in her nourishing form. Warm first, eat. Collectively, bread is soul food, sustenance, sensory, joy, receptivity, the very things Marin has refused herself for too long. From a compensation angle, what's happening? Marin's conscious life has gotten too high strong identification with a clear, spotless persona, so the unconscious pulls her down to give weight again. 3 layers of compensatio show up: dynamics, downward movement, element, water, cold, moist, and function, nourishment. The message? You've been high and bright too long. Return to warm, moist, soft, eat. If she wakes shaming herself as weak, she'll miss the letter. If she treats the dream as an order to quit her job tomorrow, that's the opposite extreme. The more Jungian move is dialogue, I accept the call to be nourished. Today, I'll do one small warming thing. Eat a real lunch away from the screen. Set a simple boundary. Take a purposeless 15-minute walk. Small acts transmute symbol into lived energy. Then compensation doesn't need heavy tactics. Zoom out. Much of what we call recurring bad luck is often fueled by complexes, emotion knots around early experience. When a complex is activated, it tints perception. We see through an old lens. We think we're choosing, but we're pulled by an invisible constant. Compensation tries to balance the system. If you overgive, life pushes you into situations where you must receive. If you over-rely on thinking, intuition arrives. If you've lived alone in a glass tower, community begins to ache into view. Even when the counterforce shows up in unpleasant forms, fatigue, a fight, a small error that forces a pause, these can be navigational signals once you learn to read them. So how do we read in Jung's spirit? First, stop moralizing emotions. Anger isn't bad. Fear isn't bad. They're data. Second, identify where consciousness is one-sided. I'm stuck in the fixer role. I must be the strong one. I never need anyone. Third, look for compensatory signs, dreams, small synchronicities, body signals. Fourth, practice amplification. Expand the symbol with cultural and personal associations. What does water mean to me? Childhood at the beach. Free swims. Then ask, what needed element is this symbol inviting me to add? Finally, embody it. One small, concrete gesture today, small enough not to trigger backlash, real enough that your nervous system registers, I'm listening. Some of you will sigh here. I've used willpower my whole life. Will is precious, but with compensation, willpower alone isn't enough. Compensation is systemic pull. One side too hard as the other speaks up. Be smart, use will to unbolt the door and let the unconscious point you toward which door. Instead of don't be sad, give sadness a container, a song a time window, a friend a page. When sadness has a place, it doesn't have to kick the door in. When your inner lover is starving, give her sensations, sun on your hands, a hot cocoa, a clumsy dance in your living room. When your inner huntress is weak, give her boundaries, 3 polite no's, a date with yourself. Compensation softens when consciousness cooperates. Back to Marin. A week after the dream, she tries 3 small experiments. Eat lunch away from the computer. Right. I need more time to respond in an email and spend 10 minutes at night noting what felt true. One evening she writes, leaving the grocery store. A stranger smiled oddly. I felt warm, like someone put a loaf in my hands. She laughs. The unconscious has a sense of humor. What she thought was an omen is really a counter movement, the outer world mirroring a subtle inner shift. Not every coincidence is profound. The key is whether it feels meaningful to the dreamer. As the inside turns, life's colors change, not flashy, but steadier. You and I have moved from the night's dream to the first doorway of morning. Now we're listening for signals that show up in everyday life. Jung called this synchronicity, meaningful coincidences, where an outer event clicks into place with your inner state at just the right moment, even though there's no obvious cause and effect. Not fortune-telling, not superstition, more like the psyche and the world briefly speaking the same sentence. You think of the mother you haven't called, and a radio plays her favorite song. You're secretly considering a career shift, and a book about slow transitions slips off a shelf. You feel closed, and a child on the train hands you a sun sticker. No invisible puppeteer, just a meeting between an inner need and an outer scene thick enough to make you pause and see. Synchronicity doesn't shout, believe blindly. It whispers, look closely. Want to practice together? Drop a short note in the comments using this format. I noted a meaningful coincidence on date and context. It made me feel body cues. My personal meaning was, no one will grade you. We're training attention and reminding each other to run the 3 questions before big moves. You can also name any repeating symbol you saw this week, river bridge, sparrow, steep road, and one matching micro action you took. Shared maps light the collective field Jung spoke of. We all feel less like we're walking alone in a dark wood. Afraid of misreading and missing a chance, lead with kindness toward yourself. There's no perfect read. If you keep journaling the three parts and using the three questions, mistakes become material to learn from, not verdicts. And real signs usually suggest right-sized steps, not all-in wagers. For money, legal, medical, or safety issues, treat signs as a fourth opinion beside professional guidance and the body steadiness. No one, not even you, gets to use the universe told me to trample your boundaries. From here, the path naturally opens to a lifelong Jungian gate, active imagination, a deliberate, safe dialogue with inner images. If synchronicity is the knock from outside, active imagination is inviting the visitor inside, pulling up a chair and asking, "What did you come to say?" Next, we'll build the container for that meeting. Clear timing, open-close rituals, how to tell a complex voice from a supportive one, and how to turn the conversation into behavior, a boundary, an apology, a self-care gesture. If your chest just widened a little, keep going. Before you scroll away, share one meaningful coincidence from this week plus your 3 journal lines. We'll read one another gently, proof that among all the noise, there are still tiny seeds of light quietly leading you home. To stay open to this subtle language without sliding into magical thinking, use a soft discipline, a meaningful coincidence journal. Each time a "that's exactly it" moment happens, jot 3 quick pieces. Context, date, or time where you were, who was there, what you were doing 5 minutes before. The unconscious often borrows trivia to stitch meaning. Subjective meaning, what it touches in you, question, memory, decision. No right or wrong, just honest. Body data, heart softer or faster, breath, wider or shallow belly, warm or tight. Your body is a barometer. It shows if you're being nourished or merely activated. Keep entries short. Then at week's end, skim for repeats. Images, Waterhouse Bridge birds, bread words, or ordinary scenes that hum the same note. Trained attention makes even dust and sunlight carry a message. And before any big decision, run a simple reality frame. 3 questions that keep your feet on the ground while your eyes stay open. 1. Facts check. If I ignore symbolism and look only at data, does this still make sense? Have I consulted enough sources/experts, people? 2. Felt tone. As I hold this choice, does my body open or contract? True synchronicities carry a quiet rightness, more than adrenaline spikes. 3. Safe test. What's a small experiment before a big commitment? A conversation, a day off a draft, a trial meeting that lets me verify fit while protecting health, money, and relationships. These don't kill intuition. They build a bridge so intuition can cross without getting lost in fog. Worried you're just cherry-picking signs to confirm what you already want. That bias is real. That's why the 3-part journal is your neutral friend. Pairing context and body data with your personal meaning trains you to see the whole field. Review after a week or a month, patterns will speak. If your signs push impulsive moves, but your body keeps tightening and your choices shrink your life, that's likely not synchronicity. That's a complex trying to sanctify an old loop. If instead small signs pair with micro actions that widen your chest, brighten relationships, in steady sleep, work on eating, then you're reading the map well. A Friday vignette, your phone buzzes 3 times with the same name, the ex-boss who burned you out. On the way home, you notice a flyer for a neighborhood pottery class and hear, "When did I last touch clay?" Is this a callback to the old grind or towards something that feeds you? Use the frame facts, say returning is risky. Your body tightens at the name, but softens imagining wet clay. Your safe test is a single Saturday class. You go. The house air changes, your shoulders drop, you smell damp earth, and that night you call a friend instead of fielding urgent emails. The universe isn't rigging the game. You're choosing a path that fits what your balancing psyche is inviting now. The charm of synchronicity is its humility. It rarely orders you to smash the red button. It nudges you to turn your head at the right time and notice what's already waiting. Sometimes it's a misprinted line on a coffee receipt that echoes your late grandmother's phrase and unlocks a needed phone call to your mom. Sometimes it's a license plate that feels like a private joke between you and life, reminding you you're not alone. And yes, at times the coincidence steers you to safety. Take a different street rideshare. Instead of driving tired, reschedule with someone who keeps crossing your boundary. The art is neither romanticizing everything nor shutting the door on wonder. Like dream language, synchronicity asks for a sensitive heart, and a clear head pour tea for the guest and keep the window open so the room can breathe. Imagine this section as a room lined with mirrors. Each mirror returns a different you, the calm face you bring to work, the guarded eyes when family digs up old stories, and in the darkest pain, a watchful child who still longs to be seen. Jung had a name for this cluster of reflexes, the complex emotional nuclei formed around early experiences. When a complex is triggered, it takes the driver's seat. It's no longer that we have a complex, the complex has us. Among them, the mother complex is especially potent, not just about your literal mother, but the internalized mother image, the nurturing or judging voice, the warmth or chill, the clear ire or porous boundary. That template quietly shapes how you love, care, and speak to yourself. What mirror do you notice most today? Practice a one-week body log. Each evening, write 3 short lines. Which button got pressed today? What body feeling stood out? What automatic act did I do or avoid doing? +1 early signal. A keyword, a picture, attention spot. In a few days, a personal dictionary emerges with this person, my ears burn. With that email, my throat dries. Right before dinner, I'm primed to fix someone. The clearer the map, the more choice you have. Next, don't just map the complex, meet it. This is where active imagination comes in, a 5 to 7 minute ritual to engage the complex as an inner figure inside a safe frame. Prepare the container to 1 minute. Sit somewhere steady, back supported, feet on the ground. Set a 7-minute timer. Set an open-close ritual at start, 1 hand on heart and 1 on belly. At end, a hand on each shoulder with the words, "That's enough for today." Invite the image, 1 minute. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply 3 times. Ask the figure that represents the complex to appear, the judging mother, the overseer, the girl who wants to be seen. Don't force it to be nice. Let it show its true face. Dialogue, 3 minutes. Imagine 2 chairs, you and the figure face to face. Ask 3 questions. What are you protecting me from? What do you want from me, even if your methods are rough? What do you need so you can rest for a while? Take seriously whatever comes sometimes. The judging mother says, "I'm afraid you'll be left." Don't argue. Answer. "Thank you for guarding me. Today I'll do X to help close the safety gate. A hot meal. 10 slow minutes, 1 warm no. You can sit beside me and just watch." Close the ritual to 2 minutes. Breathe, open your eyes. Write 1 small commitment in 1 bodily anchor. Press a palm to chest. Stretch. Sip warm water. Hand to shoulders. Enough for today. Golden rule: if imagery gets too intense, open your eyes and ground yourself with 5, 4, 3, 2. None. Name 5 things you see. 4. You can touch. 3 sounds. 2 smells. 1 taste. This brings the nervous system back down. And if you slide it into trauma responses, flashbacks, numbness, panic, seek professional support. Active imagination is a therapeutic aid, not a replacement for clinical care. What anchor works best for you when waves rise? Something changes when we dialogue. Rather than suppress, projection loses voltage. We begin to see the other as themselves, not as a screen for the old film. One rainy afternoon, Elena tries the ritual. The judging mother isn't a cold face at all, but a tired woman holding a stack of dishes. "I push you to be fast so I can finally rest," she says. Elena weeps. "I'll go slower so both of us can rest." The next day, a coworker texts, "Help, please, Elena." Feels the early signal, shoulders tense, and replies, "I can support for 30 minutes, then we'll divide the rest." She chooses a new edge of enantiodromia, not all rescue or all cutoff, but a measured conscious middle. One more truth: complexes don't disappear. They change roles. From possessor, they can become gatekeepers, alerting you at the right time but obeying your adult self. A negative mother complex can be retrained into a caring inner mother. You feed yourself first, then others. You trade. Do it again now. For rest, 5 minutes, then continue. You learn that a warm boundary is worth more than a cold generosity. As the complex finds its seat in the inner orchestra, enantiodromia softens. Instead of swinging from too much to frozen, you hover around center, the living rhythm of a human being, not a storm. If you want to practice with us, drop a line in the comments. My early signal is a word, an image, or a place in your body. If you like, also name the figure you'll invite into dialogue tonight. No grades here. We're a circle learning the language of the inside. You can share one 24-hour commitment, a warm, no, a real sit-down meal, or 10 phone-free minutes to watch the rain. Each small commitment is a brick in the bridge from awareness to change. What single brick will you lay today? Meet Elena. She's 40, a brilliant project manager, everybody's dependable fixer. When teammates slip, Elena jumps in to save the day. Beautiful on the surface, but under it is a familiar heartbeat. If I don't fix this, everything will fall apart. If it falls apart, I'll be left. At home, she's exhausted. In love, she chooses partners who need rescuing more than partners who can hold her. One afternoon, her boss offers gentle feedback, and Elena erupts tears. Defenses, then a cold silence. Too much? Maybe not. The mother complex may be online. In childhood, care came with conditions. Be good. Be better. Don't be a burden. Now any feedback lands like a life or death verdict. When a complex takes over projection, follows the surge inside, gets pasted onto the person in front of us. Today's boss suddenly wears yesterday's face. The partner across the table becomes the threat of abandonment. We stop seeing them. We see a photograph from the past. From here, the path naturally leads to a subtler Jungian terrain, anima and animus, the inner feminine and inner masculine, and how they can become allies instead of prosecutors. A mother complex often distorts the animus into a cool inner critic, or turns the anima into a fog of delay. Balancing them gives you a sturdy inner homemaker and a wise inner architect. In the next part, we'll learn to tell when the animus is speaking versus when a complex is impersonating his voice, how to assign the animus to build and the anima to warm, and how these two help you enact boundaries with heart in everyday life. If this spoke to you, stay with us and leave your early signal below. It might be the little key to the room you've stood outside for too long. Have you noticed a moment when someone today turned into a ghost from yesterday? Jung also named a sober law of the psyche enantiodromia. When anything runs to an extreme, it flips into its opposite. The giver who gives to depletion suddenly cuts all ties. The one who swallows anger for years finally explodes. The controller lets go like a boat with a broken rope. Enantiodromia isn't malicious. It's the system trying to rebalance. But if we don't catch it early, the swing can break what we cherish. Elena stops replying to messages. Let them figure it out, then grows bitter. No one is there for me. In truth, she just stepped away from herself through a swing to the opposite pole. Where might you be riding an extreme right now? What helps when you feel possessed? Use the 4-step complex cycle plus an early signal map like a flashlight in a tunnel. Trigger an eye glance, a phrase, a silence hits the old button. Surge the body speaks, tight shoulders, a lump in the throat, heat in the chest. Automatic act, you rush to fix or go completely silent. You judge or you beg. Regret when the wave passes, shame, self-scolding, or total drain. The early signal map is the key. Learn the prequel before step 3. A stock sentence, I blew it again, a classic sensation, cold belly, hot ears, a flash image, a door closing. Spot the early signal and you can change lanes before the old behavior grabs the wheel. What's one early signal you can catch this week? Climb with me to a small lookout and take in Jung's map from above. Picture 3 concentric circles. The outer ring is the persona, a social mask, as useful as formal wear. You put it on for the world, take it off at home. The middle ring is the ego, the daily coordinator that schedules, decides, and keeps your story coherent from day to day. At the center, and somehow also the horizon that holds it all, is the self, capital S, not an inflated ego, but the axis that lets every part find right proportion, where shadow isn't exiled and light doesn't preen. When persona overworks, ego stiffens. Then self taps the baton through a dream, a meaningful coincidence, or that tiny catch in your throat you keep ignoring, asking the strings to soften so the woodwinds can speak. Feeding ideas right now. Love or low. Offer your body a sensory kindness, sit to eat, and actually look at the food. Extend a warm shower by 3 minutes. Touch a fabric that soothes. Play one song that softens the throat. Warrior, huntress, low. Write a 20-second boundary. Thanks for thinking of me this week. I can't take more. Let's revisit timing. Magician/sage, low, block 40. Purposeless minutes to read, watch a talk, or tinker. No immediate output. King or queen, low. Clear your desk surface. Review tomorrow in 5 minutes. Pick 3 doable items instead of 10 impossible ones. Redraw the wheel every Sunday. Watch the lines rise, fall across a month. You'll see the gentle truth once the hungry part is fed. The household inside you calms. About the house, many of us confuse persona with kindness and try to be kind by bearing a feeling. But persona is only a beautiful door. If you keep it locked all day, honored guests, emotion, intuition, justified anger, the sadness that needs holding can't enter or leave. Ego is the doorkeeper. Let it mature, courteous, outward, reverent, inward. The self is the house itself with more rooms than you think, one for loud laughter, one for silence, one for tears, one for decisions. Living from self doesn't erase you. It lends a quiet dignity, fewer words, but they land giving and receiving enough. No proving, no bleeding yourself out to decorate a mask. A necessary ethical note, especially if dreamwork and archetypes stir old pain, finding meaning in pain never justifies harm. If you're in danger or being abused, first protect yourself and seek professional help. Dreamwork and archetypal charts are for inner understanding, not reasons to remain where you're being hurt. Want to practice with us tonight? Try this. Record your latest dream. Pull 2 symbols. Answer the compensatory/perspective questions in 2 lines and choose one 24-hour microact. Then share 1 note from this week's archetype wheel. Lover 410. Eat lunch seated, screens off, or King Queen 310. Write 3 main tasks for tomorrow. No one is grading. When we speak the shared language of symbols, small acts as a gentle collective current lifts us. The collective unconscious is like climate. Each tiny pledge warms it a little. How do I know it's the self speaking, not the persona playing enlightened? Watch for 3 tell. The self's voice expands without superiority, no scolding, no show. We get tired because we mix up the rings. We mistake the persona for who I am, forever polite, useful, grateful, the firefighter or the tireless one. We mistake the ego for the whole, so if one role drops, we fear will vanish. The self is calmer. It doesn't ask you to quit your job or abandon duty. It asks for proportion. Wear the suit, just don't sleep in it. Organize your life, just don't hold your breath to keep it frozen. When consciousness leans too far one way, the unconscious compensates. Our work is to learn that subtle language and come back to center. The self's invitation is right-sized, one honest step you can take. Now, not a grand leap that leaves you frozen. Choices from self make relationships truer. Not instantly easier, but kinder in truth. Less theater, more clean reality. When these signs appear, you're on the center line. Enantiodromia tugs you less, and life finds a steadier rhythm. From here, the way opens naturally. We now have the 3-ring map, a dream listening rhythm, and an archetypal compass. Next, we'll weave them into a livable week boundaries with cadence work. Rest architecture, opens, your close rituals for the day, and a special focus on letting your anima/animus collaborate, one building structure and focus the other, warming connection and imagination. If your chest just softened and a small action popped into mind, keep walking. Before you go, drop in the comments your latest dream symbol plus 1 24-hour act and the hungriest slice on your archetype wheel plus how you'll feed it. Those small lines are threads tying each of us back to the larger self that's been patiently calling us home. A practical way to hear the self is dream work. Not fortune-telling, but a warm, serious dialogue between conscious and unconscious. Try 3 simple steps. Step 1, record on waking. Notebook by the bed. Write it raw, no polishing. Include body context if it lingers, dry throat. Warm eyes, pounding, or soft heart. Step 2, pull 2-3 symbols. Less is deeper, the road over a river, a locked room, a red-beaked bird on a rail. Step 3, ask 2 questions. Compensatory. What daytime attitude is overdone that the dream is balancing? Perspective. What direction is this dream pointing me toward in coming days? Too rational and straight line by day. A broad river may invite softness and curves. Lost in delay. A heavy clock may ask for one small decision. Then anchor the symbol to a 24-hour micro-act walk, 10 minutes by water. Make the call you've dodged, send a decisive kind email. When image becomes gesture, dream, energy becomes daytime fuel. How do I know I'm reading it right in dream work? The axis isn't right or wrong, but honesty, experience, connection. Run a body check after the micro-act. If something in you opens breath, warm or steadier, chances are you've neared the self's intention. If you clamp down, jaw tight, sleep agitated, you may have turned the dream into a command too soon. Step back and ask, which ratio needs changing? First, more sleep, hot food, one fewer appointment before I tackle bigger moves. A second compass is an archetypal energy wheel, a quick scan for what's hungry. Draw a circle, divide it into 4 slices, and score each 1 to 10 this week. Lover, sensing, pleasure, bonding. Warrior, huntress, boundaries, action, protection. Magician, sage, intuition, understanding, transformation. King or queen, order, decision, sovereignty. Ask honestly, am I being touched slowly and allowed to enjoy? Lover. Do I say no in time and initiate? Warrior/huntress. Do I leave room to learn, experiment, play? Magician, sage. Do I set a minimal effective frame for my day? King, queen. The lowest score is the hunger. Don't scold it, feed it with one tiny act. Picture yourself standing at your own threshold, hand on the doorknob. Behind you is the house of the self. Before you, a world full of invitations. In Jung's spirit, a boundary isn't a cold wall that cuts you off from life. It's a sturdy front porch guarded by the warrior/huntress, so the lover inside can still love, the magician, sage can still understand, and the king/queen can still reign without burning out. When your boundaries open and close in rhythm, the persona doesn't have to strain to be polite. The ego doesn't have to clamp down to control, and the self, the whole center, finally has room to breathe. We've talked about dreams, compensation, and complexes. Now we turn insight into living structure. How to say no without losing warmth, how to forgive without betraying yourself, and how to know when to set down the sword and call in a professional hand. Let's begin with the warrior or huntress, the archetype of lucid boundaries. She doesn't roar. She listens for the wind, reads the tracks, chooses the one arrow that matters. Real boundaries aren't loud, they're clear. In daily life, that clarity can live inside 3 simple, polite no's, like stepping stones to your door. Thank you for thinking of me this week. I can't take more on. Let's revisit next week. I'm not ready to talk about that right now. I'll check in when I have more space. That doesn't work for me. I'll choose option X. Saying these, you're not turning to stone. You're changing fuel from fear of abandonment to loyalty to the self. And so your boundary doesn't become a blade braid into it, one breath of the lover, warm and respectful. Speak slowly, relax your shoulders, keep your eyes kind. Warrior holds the door, lover pours the tea. Here's a 20-second script, short enough for your nervous system, long enough for your heart. Hey, name, I value the relationship, what you've done. Lately, I've noticed your state as need, so I'm going to specific boundary, not take more on, not discuss this topic, not attend. If alternative, I'm happy to plan B another time, a form of support that fits. Thanks for understanding. Why are boundaries so crucial right now? Because enantiodromia, the swing to the opposite pole, waits in the wings. If you've lived at the extreme of pleasing to depletion, it's easy to snap to cutting everyone off. The swing can buy you air, but if you build a house there, your heart dries out. The huntress points to the narrow middle, not yes to all, not no to all, but on purpose. What is truly yours today, this week, in this relationship, and what belongs back to the other person, to time, to silence? Let the king/queen mark 2 or 3 things that are yours today. The warrior will courteously close the gate on the rest. Now, forgiveness, a word easy to misunderstand. Inner forgiveness is not the same as resuming contact. Forgiveness in the self's way is first a posture unhooking your heart from someone else's history so your life energy returns to you. It might be an unsent letter, a quiet prayer, or one long breath that finally opens your throat. Contact is another matter. It requires safety, accountability, and change you can observe from the other side. You have the right to forgive internally and still keep your distance. You have the right to say, I bless your road over there, like putting an object back in its proper room. Forgiveness is not a free ticket for harm. It's the key that unlocks your hand from the old chain. The warrior reminds you, no one has more authority over the pain in your body than you. The magician sage asks, what's the lesson here so we don't repeat it? And the king/queen redraws the lines. Some situations can't be held by boundaries and forgiveness alone. Deep wounds that make body-mind hum like an over-tightened string, Flashbacks, numbness, chronic nightmares. A long fog of meaninglessness, urges to self-harm, or living inside abuse addiction control. Here, courage means asking for help. Jung never preached lonely self-reliance. He believed in containers, a room where someone sits with you when the dark grows thick. If you're in immediate danger, choose safety first. Leave, call local emergency services, find shelter. For heavy trauma, seek professional care, trauma-informed therapists, trustworthy groups, the right physician. The tools we practice here, dream journaling, active imagination. Boundaries work far better when your nervous system is supported. Self-help and supported help aren't opposites. They're two halves of one breath. Return to the small daily life where change truly lands. Choose an open-close ritual so boundaries become a rhythm, not just words. Morning hand on heart, ask the king-queen. What are the 3 essentials today, and post the warrior at the gate for those 3. Midday, give the lover 10 seated, screen-free minutes to eat long enough for the heart to remember you're human. Evening, write 2 lines for the magician or sage, one thing you learned, one little symbol that appeared in a dream or in the day. If a hard conversation arises, use your 20-second script, then take a 5-minute walk outside to settle your nervous system. Repeated, these tiny acts rebuild the floor of your day, like moving from a house with no footing to a home with a foundation. Here's the gift: as your boundaries stand firm, projection falls away. The person in front of you stops wearing the face of the past. They return to being themselves, and you return to being you. In that new space, the lover can love without selling out. The warrior can protect without freezing. The magician/sage can understand without over-reasoning to dodge feeling. The king and queen can decide without becoming rigid. The self stands in the center, smiling like a house well built. If you want these ideas to become hands, feet, and breath, join the circle below. Write one polite no you'll use this week. If you like, post your 20-second script so others can learn and add to our boundary library. You can also share an experience of inner forgiveness. No need for painful details, just a line about how it felt to unhook your heart from an old story. And if you recognize you're in a zone that needs professional support, let the community hold you with wishes for safety and respect. Your decision to seek care. We don't diagnose one another. We stand beside one another. Let this ending be like standing on the porch after rain, watching the last drop slide off the roof. We've walked through many rooms together, persona, like a well-tailored suit. Ego, the diligent house steward, the unconscious as a night garden that mails letters and symbols, and the self with a capital S as the roof holding it all. We learn to notice compensation when consciousness tips, to listen to synchronicity without superstition, but with a lucid heart, to name complexes so they stop owning us, to set boundaries with the warm voice of the warrior/huntress, and to feed hungry archetypes with small gestures. If you carry only 3 lines with you, let them be: not perfect whole, not forced listening, not alone held. Before we close, try a 60-second ritual. Hand on chest, slow inhale, longer exhale. Whisper to the self, I hear you. Call up one symbol from this week: the river, the key, the loaf, the bird, and ask tomorrow what tiny act could turn this symbol into life. Maybe a 10-minute walk by water, the conversation you've postponed, a seated lunch without multitasking, or writing one warm no. These small movements are the little hammer that sets a foundation. One tap a day, and the house inside you steadies without theatrics. A ethical reminder, so this ending stands on solid ground. Finding meaning in pain never justifies abuse. If you're in an unsafe situation, your first task is protection and professional support. Practices here: dream work, active imagination, boundaries. Archetype mapping belong on a base of safety. Asking for help is a form of courage, not failure. When you leave this video, take a simple 7-day roadmap so today's journey settles into the muscles. Day 1, record a dream or fragment. Pull 2 symbols. Day 2, write a 20-second no and use it once. Day 3, 10 minutes of active imagination with your gentlest inner figure, the protector, the flower-handed grandmother. Day 4, a brief synchronicity journal, context, subjective meaning, body feeling. Day 5, archetype check-in score, lover, warrior, huntress, magician, sage, king, queen, give the hungry one a small meal. Day 6, a heart-forward boundary in one interaction, clear plus warm. Day 7, 10-line review what you heard from the self in one 24-hour commitment. If this journey touched you, step into the circle in the comments where we keep learning the language of symbol together. Leave 2 lines. 1, your latest dream symbol. 1 micro action you'll take in the next 24 hours. 2, the warm no you choose this week. Subscribe and tap the bell, not to chase an algorithm, but to give yourself a weekly rhythm of return to that quiet inner room. Share this with a friend standing at their own threshold. Sometimes I think this is for you, is the little nudge they need to turn the handle. Remember, the self doesn't ask you to become someone else. It calls you back to yourself fully. As you live from that center, an entheodromia pulls less violently. Wild swings soften into healthy oscillations. Relationships feel truer. Time feels roomier. Sleep deepens. Anger finds a way out. That's not magic. It's the fruit of hundreds of small choices loyal to the self. If you stray, don't panic. The house is still here. Knock with a breath, a journal line, a gentle no, and the door will open. We'll be here too, fellow travelers waiting to read your story below. Before you go, choose one anchor line to post where you'll see it. I don't need to be perfect. I'm becoming whole. Or you advise I decide. Or safety first, meaning next. Short lines like these are porch ties in a shifting wind, so you can always find your way home. If you're ready for the next stretch, the upcoming video offers a 30-day arc to weave these practices into a soft living structure. A week of dreams, a week of boundaries, a week of creativity, a week of relationships. 1 rhythm per week, 1 step per day. I'll be there with a pot of tea. For now, may your night bring gentle dreams and your morning be quiet enough to hear the self knocking softly from within.